In the heart of Los Angeles, where the sun blazed down on busy streets filled with people rushing to their destinations, a quiet morning was about to turn into something unforgettable. Keanu Reeves, the famous actor known for his roles in action-packed movies and his humble personality, was going about his day like any other person. He wasn't surrounded by bodyguards or flashy cars. Instead, he drove himself to a local bank to deposit a check. With him was James, his trusted driver who had been by his side for years. James wasn't just an employee. He was someone Keanu genuinely cared for, almost like family. The bank was located in a busy part of town, its glass doors reflecting the bright California sunlight. Inside, the air conditioning hummed softly as customers stood in line, waiting patiently for their turn at the counters. Tellers worked efficiently, their fingers tapping on keyboards while they handled transactions. It seemed like an ordinary day, but little did anyone know that this visit would soon become the talk of the town. Keanu parked his car near the entrance and stepped out, dressed casually in jeans and a simple t-shirt. No one paid much attention to him initially. After all, despite his fame, Keanu preferred blending in rather than drawing unnecessary attention to himself. James stayed behind to park the car properly before joining Keanu inside. As Keanu entered the building, he nodded politely to the security guard stationed near the door and joined the queue. Everything appeared normal until James walked in a few minutes later. Clutching a folder containing some documents related to Keanu's account, James approached the counter to clarify a minor detail. What happened next shocked everyone present. A bank manager, noticing James's attire and assuming he was merely the driver, decided to make an example of him. In a loud voice that echoed across the room, the manager berated James for daring to ask questions about financial matters. "Who do you think you are?" the manager snapped, his tone dripping with condescension. "This is not your place. You don't belong here." The words hit hard, cutting through the otherwise peaceful atmosphere of the bank. Customers turned to look, their eyes wide with surprise and discomfort. Some shifted awkwardly in their seats, unsure whether to intervene or stay silent. Others exchanged glances, silently criticizing the manager's behavior. For James, the moment was humiliating. His face flushed red as he tried to explain himself, but the manager refused to listen. Instead, the man continued to belittle him, making sure everyone heard every word. James felt small, insignificant, and deeply embarrassed. All eyes were on him now, and the weight of judgment pressed heavily on his shoulders. Unbeknownst to James, Keanu had already finished his transaction and was standing nearby when the confrontation began. At first, he didn't say anything, choosing instead to observe quietly. But as the manager's harsh words grew louder, Keanu's expression changed. His usual calm demeanor gave way to a mix of disbelief and determination. Known for avoiding public confrontations, Keanu realized this was a moment that couldn't be ignored. The manager's treatment of James wasn't just rude, it was wrong, and Keanu knew he had to step in. Taking a deep breath, Keanu moved closer to the counter where the scene was unfolding. Every step he took radiated purpose, and though his movements were measured, there was no mistaking the seriousness in his gaze. By now, several customers had recognized him, whispering among themselves about the Hollywood star standing right there in their midst. Yet Keanu paid them no mind. His focus was entirely on the situation at hand. When he finally reached the counter, he placed a firm hand on James's shoulder, signaling solidarity and support. Then, turning toward the manager, Keanu spoke in a voice so steady and authoritative that it immediately commanded attention. "This man," Keanu began, his tone leaving no room for argument, "is more than just my driver. He's part of my team, my family even. He works tirelessly to ensure everything runs smoothly, and I trust him completely. If you have a problem with him, then you're essentially having a problem with me." The silence that followed was deafening. Customers stopped what they were doing, their curiosity piqued by the unexpected drama unfolding before them. Even the tellers paused mid-transaction, unable to tear their eyes away from the exchange. The manager, caught off guard by Keanu's Intervention stumbled over his words, clearly unprepared for such a bold response. For James, hearing Keanu defend him so passionately meant the world. The initial sting of humiliation began to fade, replaced by a sense of pride and gratitude. Here was a man, a global superstar, who could have easily ignored the situation and walked away. But instead, Keanu chose to stand up, not only for James but also for the principle of treating everyone with respect, regardless of their job title or social status. As the tension in the room hung thick, Keanu's words reverberated in everyone's minds, reminding them of the importance of kindness and fairness. The manager, realizing the gravity of his mistake, mumbled an apology, though it lacked sincerity. Keanu didn't push further. He simply nodded curtly and guided James away from the counter. Together they made their way toward the exit, leaving behind a room full of stunned onlookers. Outside, reporters loitered near the bank entrance, hoping to catch a glimpse of the actor. Sensing the commotion, they approached Keanu and James, asking if everything was all right. Without hesitation, Keanu smiled warmly and replied, "We're good. Just another day." His response was simple yet powerful, encapsulating his philosophy of handling challenges with grace and dignity. As news of the incident spread, people couldn't stop talking about it. Social media buzzed with admiration for Keanu's actions, with fans praising him for standing up against arrogance and defending someone often overlooked. For James, the experience transformed how he viewed his role, not just as a driver, but as someone valued and respected. Meanwhile, Keanu remained unchanged, proving once again that true character shines brightest during moments of adversity. Little did anyone know, this was only the beginning of a story that would inspire countless others. As Keanu and James stepped out of the bank, the Los Angeles sun greeted them with its usual warmth. The contrast between the cool interior of the bank and the bright open air outside seemed symbolic somehow, like they were leaving behind a tense, uncomfortable situation and stepping into something lighter and more hopeful. Yet, despite Keanu's calm demeanor, James still felt unsettled. Though his boss had stood up for him in a way that made him feel both proud and protected, the sting of humiliation lingered. He couldn't shake the memory of the manager's harsh words or the way people inside the bank had stared at him. Keanu noticed James's quietness as they walked toward the car. Without saying a word, he reached out and placed a reassuring hand on James's shoulder. "Hey," Keanu said softly, his voice filled with genuine concern. "You okay?" James hesitated for a moment before nodding slightly. "Yeah, I'm fine," he replied, though his tone suggested otherwise. Keanu didn't press further. Instead, he gave James a small smile and said, "Let me know if you want to talk about it later." It was simple, but those few words carried so much weight. They reminded James that he wasn't alone, that someone truly cared about how he felt. Meanwhile, outside the bank, reporters who had been waiting eagerly for any glimpse of celebrity activity quickly picked up on the tension between Keanu and James. One bold journalist approached them, microphone in hand, asking casually, "Is everything all right? You two seem a bit, serious." Keanu turned to face the reporter, his expression calm but firm. "We're good," he said with a slight shrug, brushing off the question as if it were nothing. "Just another day." His response was vague enough to satisfy the curious crowd, yet it left room for speculation. The reporters exchanged glances, sensing there was more to the story than met the eye. Back in the car, the atmosphere shifted. As James started the engine and pulled away from the curb, Keanu leaned back in his seat, gazing out the window thoughtfully. For a while, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It was reflective, almost comforting. Finally, James broke the quiet. "You didn't have to do that back there," he said, his voice tinged with gratitude. "I mean, I could have handled it myself." Keanu chuckled lightly, shaking his head. "James, nobody should have to handle being treated like that," he replied. "What happened in there wasn't right, and I wasn't going to let it slide." James nodded slowly, absorbing Keanu's words. Deep down, he knew his boss was right. Still, it amazed him how Keanu had chosen to intervene so publicly. Most celebrities would have avoided making a scene altogether, prioritizing their image over standing up for someone else. But Keanu wasn't like most celebrities. He valued principles over popularity, always striving to do what he believed was right, even when it meant drawing attention to himself. This quality was one of the many reasons James admired him so deeply. While Keanu and James continued their drive, news of the incident began spreading like wildfire. Inside the bank, customers who had witnessed the confrontation couldn't stop talking about it. Some expressed outrage over the manager's behavior, calling it disrespectful and uncalled for. Others praised Keanu for defending James, highlighting how rare it was to see someone in his position take such a stand. Social media platforms lit up with posts and comments as eyewitnesses shared snippets of what had transpired. Within hours, hashtags like the Respect for All and Keanu Reeves hero trended online, flooding timelines with messages of support for James and admiration for Keanu. The story gained even more traction when a video surfaced. A customer who had been standing nearby during the confrontation had discreetly recorded part of the exchange on their phone. Though the footage was shaky and incomplete, it captured the essence of the moment. The manager's condescending tone, James's visible discomfort, and Keanu stepping in with quiet authority. The clip went viral almost instantly, racking up millions of views across various platforms. Viewers were quick to comment, applauding Keanu's actions and criticizing the manager's lack of professionalism. Many pointed out how the incident highlighted broader issues of classism and workplace hierarchy, sparking conversations about respect and equality. Despite the growing attention, Keanu remained unfazed. Back at his home later that evening, he sat quietly in his living room, scrolling through his phone as updates about the incident poured in. He didn't seek validation or recognition for what he had done. It simply wasn't in his nature. However, he couldn't help but notice how the story resonated with so many people. Messages of gratitude flooded his social media accounts, with fans expressing how inspired they were by his actions. One comment in particular caught his eye. "In a world where kindness is often overlooked, thank you for reminding us of its power." That night, Keanu reflected on the day's events. He thought about James, the loyalty, dedication, and hard work he brought to the table every single day. To Keanu, James wasn't just an employee. He was a friend, a partner in navigating life's challenges. Their bond transcended titles and roles, rooted in mutual respect and trust. Reflecting on this, Keanu felt a renewed sense of purpose. He realized that moments like these mattered, not because they made headlines, but because they reminded people of the importance of treating others with dignity and compassion. The next morning, James arrived at work as usual, ready to start the day. But things felt different this time. When he entered Keanu's house, he found a note waiting for him on the kitchen counter. Written in Keanu's neat handwriting, it read, "Thanks for everything you do, James. Your value isn't defined by anyone else's opinion. Keep shining." James smiled faintly, feeling a wave of emotion wash over him. It was a small gesture, but it meant the world to him. It reinforced the idea that his contributions mattered, not just to Keanu, but to the bigger picture of their shared journey. As the days passed, the buzz surrounding the incident showed no signs of dying down. News outlets picked up the story, framing it as an example of humility and integrity in action. Talk shows discussed Keanu's response, with hosts praising his character and urging others to follow his lead. Meanwhile, James found himself receiving messages from friends, family, and even strangers who had heard about what happened. At first, he felt overwhelmed by the sudden attention, but eventually, he came to see it as a testament to the impact of standing up for what's right. For Keanu, life returned to normal, or as normal as it could be for someone constantly in the public eye. He continued working on his projects, attending meetings, and living his life with the same humility that had earned him global admiration. Yet, the incident served as a reminder of the ripple effect of kindness. By speaking up for James, Keanu hadn't just defended one person. He had sparked a movement. People everywhere were inspired to rethink how they treated others, whether in professional settings or everyday interactions. And so, the story of Keanu Reeves and his driver became more than just a fleeting moment of drama. It evolved into a lesson, a powerful reminder that respect, empathy, and courage can change lives. For James, it was a turning point, reinforcing his self-worth and strengthening his bond with Keanu. For Keanu, it was another opportunity to live according to his values, proving once again that true greatness lies not in fame or fortune, but in the way we treat those around us. The days following the bank incident brought a wave of unexpected attention, not just for Keanu Reeves, but also for James. While Keanu had always been admired for his humility and kindness, this event added another layer to his reputation. People began seeing him not only as a talented actor, but also as someone who stood firmly for what was right. For James, however, the experience was transformative in ways he hadn't anticipated. He went from feeling small and humiliated to realizing how much he truly mattered, not just to Keanu, but to countless others who heard his story. At first, James struggled with the newfound spotlight. Messages poured in from friends, acquaintances, and even strangers, all expressing support and admiration. Some praised his resilience, while others thanked him for being an example of dignity in the face of adversity. It was overwhelming at times, especially since James wasn't used to being the center of attention. He preferred staying behind the scenes, quietly doing his job without seeking recognition. But now, his name was attached to a story that had gone viral, and there was no escaping it. Keanu noticed how uneasy James seemed during those early days. One morning, as they drove together to a meeting, Keanu broke the silence. "You know," he said gently, glancing at James through the rear-view mirror, "you don't have to carry all this alone. If you need space or time to process everything, take it. No pressure." His words were simple, yet they carried immense weight. James nodded, appreciating the gesture. "I'll be okay," he replied after a pause. "It's just strange, you know? I never expected any of this." What made the situation even more surreal was the way people reacted when they recognized James. Before the incident, he was often overlooked, just another face in the crowd. Now, strangers approached him on the street, thanking him for inspiring them, or telling him how much they respected him for handling the situation with grace. At grocery stores, gas stations, and coffee shops, James found himself fielding questions about what happened at the bank. Some asked if he planned to sue the manager. Others wanted to know how he felt about Keanu defending him so passionately. Each interaction left James reflecting on the power of standing up for oneself and having someone stand beside you. Meanwhile, the bank where the confrontation took place became a focal point of public scrutiny. Customers started sharing their own experiences, both positive and negative, about the institution. Many criticized its management for fostering an environment where employees felt entitled to mistreat others based on perceived status. Others defended the bank, arguing that the manager's behavior didn't represent the organization as a whole. Amidst the backlash, the bank issued a formal apology, stating that they were investigating the matter thoroughly and committed to ensuring such incidents wouldn't happen again. However, the damage had already been done. Trust once broken is hard to rebuild. For James, the apology felt hollow. He appreciated the acknowledgement, but it didn't erase the memory of being publicly humiliated. What did help, though, was knowing that he wasn't alone in his struggle. Friends and family rallied around him, offering encouragement and reminding him of his worth. Even co-workers who had previously kept their distance reached out, expressing solidarity and admiration. Slowly but surely, James began to see himself differently, not as someone diminished by the manager's words, but as someone strengthened by overcoming the ordeal. Keanu, too, played a crucial role in helping James regain his confidence. Over the following weeks, he made sure to include James in conversations and decisions, reinforcing the idea that his contributions were valued. Whether it was discussing scheduling logistics, planning travel arrangements, or simply chatting about life, Keanu ensured that James felt seen and heard. These small gestures might have seemed insignificant to outsiders, but to James, They meant everything. They reminded him that he wasn't just the driver, he was part of a team, a trusted ally whose presence mattered deeply. As the weeks turned into months, the initial frenzy surrounding the incident began to fade. Social media moved on to other trending topics, and news outlets shifted their focus elsewhere. Yet the impact of Keanu's actions continued to resonate. Schools incorporated the story into discussions about respect and empathy, using it as an example of how to treat others fairly regardless of their position. Workplace seminars highlighted the importance of recognizing every individual's value, urging managers and leaders to lead with kindness rather than arrogance. Even celebrities weighed in, praising Keanu for setting a standard of integrity that others could aspire to. For James, the lasting effect of the incident was profound. It changed the way he viewed himself and his role in the world. Where once he might have doubted his significance, he now carried himself with quiet confidence. He realized that titles and labels didn't define him. It was his character, work, ethic, and relationships that truly mattered. This shift in perspective allowed him to approach life with renewed purpose, knowing that he deserved respect simply because he was human. Keanu, on the other hand, remained steadfastly humble. Despite the widespread praise he received, he never sought credit for his actions. To him, standing up for James had been instinctive, a natural response to witnessing injustice. In interviews, when asked about the incident, he downplayed his role, emphasizing instead the importance of treating everyone with dignity. "It's not about me," he often said. "It's about remembering that we're all equal, no matter our jobs or backgrounds. We should lift each other up, not tear each other down." Their bond grew stronger as a result of the experience. Keanu and James shared a unique connection, forged not just by years of working together, but also by weathering challenges side by side. They laughed more, talked openly about their feelings, and supported each other in ways that transcended traditional employer-employee dynamics. For Keanu, James wasn't just a driver. He was a friend, a confidant, and a reminder of why staying grounded was so important. And for James, Keanu wasn't just a boss. He was a mentor, a protector, and a source of inspiration. One evening, months after the incident, Keanu and James found themselves driving along the Pacific Coast Highway. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The road stretched ahead of them, winding along cliffs overlooking the ocean. As they drove, Keanu turned to James and said, "You know, I've been thinking. Life throws curveballs sometimes, but it's moments like these, the tough ones, that shape us. You handled everything with so much grace, James. I'm proud of you." James smiled, touched by the compliment. "Thanks, Keanu," he replied softly. "But honestly, I couldn't have done it without you. You showed me that standing up for what's right isn't just about protecting yourself. It's about protecting others, too." Keanu nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "Exactly," he said. "And if we can inspire even one person to do the same, then it's all worth it." In the end, the story of Keanu Reeves and his driver wasn't just about a single moment of courage or defiance. It was about the enduring power of kindness, the strength found in unity, and the belief that everyone deserves to be treated with respect. It was a reminder that heroes aren't defined by capes or fame. They're defined by their actions, big or small. And in this case, two men, one famous, one not, proved that true greatness lies in lifting others up, even when the world tries to push them down. Months had passed since the incident at the bank, and while life for Keanu Reeves and James returned to its usual rhythm, the ripple effects of that day continued to unfold in unexpected ways. The story had become a symbol of hope and resilience, inspiring conversations far beyond Los Angeles. People from different walks of life found themselves reflecting on their own experiences, moments when they felt overlooked or undervalued, and wondered how they could make a difference, just as Keanu had done. For James, the transformation was profound. What began as a humiliating encounter turned into an opportunity for growth. He started noticing subtle changes in how others interacted with him. At gas stations, grocery stores, and even during casual encounters on the street, strangers approached him with warmth and respect. Some shared stories of their own struggles, thanking him for being an example of strength and dignity. Others simply offered words of encouragement, telling him he inspired them to stand up for themselves and others. Though James still preferred staying out of the spotlight, he couldn't deny the impact his story had on people's lives. One afternoon, while waiting outside a cafe where Keanu was meeting a friend, James struck up a conversation with a young barista who recognized him. "Are you the guy from that bank story?" she asked hesitantly, her eyes lighting up with curiosity. James nodded, smiling faintly. The barista leaned closer, lowering her voice. "I just want to say, what happened to you? It reminded me that it's okay to speak up. My boss treats us like we're invisible sometimes, but hearing about how you handled everything gave me courage." Her words lingered in James's mind long after their conversation ended. It wasn't just about him anymore. His story had become a catalyst for change. Keanu, too, noticed shifts in his daily interactions. Fans who once praised him solely for his acting skills now expressed admiration for his character. During autograph signings and public appearances, people thanked him not only for his movies but also for reminding them of the importance of kindness and standing up for others. One fan handed him a handwritten note that read, "You showed us that real heroes don't wear capes. They live among us, quietly making the world better." Keanu tucked the note into his pocket, touched by the sentiment. To him, these moments weren't about fame or recognition. They were reminders of why he chose to act with integrity no matter the situation. Despite the positive attention, both Keanu and James remained grounded. They continued their routines, navigating busy schedules and balancing work with personal time. Yet there were moments when the weight of what had happened resurfaced. For James, it came during quiet evenings when he reflected on how quickly life could shift. He often thought about the manager at the bank, the person whose actions had sparked the entire chain of events. Though anger had faded, curiosity remained. What made someone treat another human being so dismissively? Could the manager have changed since that day? Keanu encouraged James to focus on the bigger picture rather than dwelling on individuals. "Some people will always find reasons to look down on others," Keanu said one evening as they drove home from a long day. "But our job isn't to fix them. It's to rise above it. By doing that, we inspire others to do the same." His words resonated deeply with James, offering clarity and perspective. Instead of letting bitterness take root, James chose to channel his energy into positivity, focusing on the lessons he'd learned and the connections he'd formed along the way. As the months went by, the story took on new dimensions. Schools across the country began incorporating it into discussions about bullying, workplace dynamics, and social justice. Teachers used it as a case study to teach students about empathy and the importance of treating everyone equally, regardless of their role or status. In corporate settings, HR departments referenced the incident during training sessions, urging employees to recognize the value of every team member. Even online forums buzzed with debates about classism and respect, with many pointing to Keanu's response as a model of leadership and humanity. The bank itself underwent significant changes. Following the backlash, management implemented stricter policies to prevent similar incidents. Employees attended workshops on professionalism and inclusivity, learning how to create a welcoming environment for all customers. Though some skeptics doubted whether these measures would lead to lasting improvements, others believed the bank was taking meaningful steps toward redemption. For James, seeing these efforts provided a sense of closure. While nothing could erase the memory of that day, knowing that something good had come from it brought him peace. Amidst the broader impact, Keanu and James grew closer than ever. Their bond evolved beyond friendship, becoming a partnership built on trust, mutual respect, and shared values. Keanu frequently sought James's input on decisions, valuing his perspective and insights. James in turn appreciated Keanu's willingness to include him in meaningful ways. Together, they navigated challenges, celebrated victories, and supported each other through life's ups and downs. It was a relationship rooted in authenticity, a rarity in a world often dominated by superficial connections. One Saturday morning, Keanu surprised James with tickets to a charity gala benefiting underprivileged youth. "I figured it's time. You got a taste of the glamorous side of my life," Keanu joked as he handed over the envelope. James laughed, shaking his head. "You know I'm more comfortable behind the wheel than walking red carpets," he replied. But deep down he was touched by the gesture. Attending the event alongside Keanu felt like a testament to how far they'd come, not just professionally, but personally. At the gala, James found himself surrounded by influential figures from various industries. CEOs, philanthropists, and artists mingled effortlessly, exchanging ideas and forging connections. Initially intimidated, James soon realized that everyone present shared a common goal: making the world a better place. Conversations flowed naturally, with attendees eager to hear his perspective on overcoming adversity and fostering inclusivity. By the end of the night, James walked away with a renewed sense of purpose, inspired by the collective commitment to creating positive change. Back home, Keanu and James debriefed over coffee, laughing about the evening's highlights. "You held your own out there," Keanu said, raising his mug in a mock toast. "Maybe next time I'll let you do the interviews." James chuckled, rolling his eyes playfully. "Don't push your luck," he teased. Despite the light-hearted banter, both men knew the night had been special, not because of the glitz and glamour, but because of the connections they'd made and the inspiration they'd drawn from others. As weeks turned into months, the story of Keanu and James became less about the specific incident and more about the principles it represented. It served as a reminder that kindness, courage, and respect are timeless virtues that transcend circumstances. Whether in Hollywood or everyday life, the message resonated universally. Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, and standing up for others is one of the most powerful things we can do. For Keanu, the experience reinforced his belief in leading by example. He continued living his life with humility and grace, proving that true greatness lies not in titles or achievements, but in the way we treat those around us. And for James, the journey taught him the value of self-worth and resilience. No longer defined by the humiliation he endured, he embraced his identity as someone who inspired others to see the best in themselves. Together, they proved that even in a world often divided by status and privilege, unity and compassion could prevail. Their story wasn't just about two individuals. It was about the power of standing together, lifting each other up, and reminding the world that humanity thrives when we choose kindness over judgment. As time went on, the story of Keanu Reeves and James continued to inspire people in ways neither of them could have imagined. What started as a single moment of courage and solidarity had grown into something much larger, a movement that encouraged individuals to reflect on their own actions and attitudes. People everywhere began sharing how the incident resonated with them, sparking conversations about respect, empathy, and equality. It wasn't just a Hollywood tale anymore. It was a human story that touched lives across generations and cultures. For James, this newfound sense of purpose became a driving force in his life. He started noticing small but meaningful changes within himself. Where once he might have hesitated to speak up or doubted his worth, he now carried himself with quiet confidence. The humiliation he felt at the bank no longer defined him. It had transformed into strength. Friends and family noticed the shift too. His sister, who lived in another state, called one evening to say how proud she was of him. "You've always been someone special, James," she told him over the phone. "But now you're showing everyone else what I've known all along. You're strong, kind, and capable." Keanu watched these transformations unfold with quiet pride. Though he never sought recognition for standing up for James, he couldn't help but feel grateful for the positive impact it had created. One day, while scrolling through social media during a rare break, Keanu stumbled upon a post from a teacher in Texas. She wrote about using his response at the bank as an example in her classroom. Her students, ranging from ages 10 to 12, discussed why treating others with kindness mattered. They even acted out scenarios where they practiced defending someone being treated unfairly. Reading the post brought a smile to Keanu's face. It reminded him that actions, no matter how small, can ripple outward and touch countless lives. The two men also found themselves invited to events and gatherings where their story was celebrated. At first, both were hesitant to attend. Neither enjoyed being in the spotlight. But eventually, they realized it wasn't about them. It was about amplifying the message behind their experience. One weekend, they traveled to a community center in Chicago for a panel discussion on workplace inclusivity. The room was packed with people eager to hear their thoughts. When asked how they maintained such a strong bond despite their different roles, Keanu simply said, "Respect isn't about titles or positions. It's about seeing each other as equals and valuing what everyone brings to the table." The audience erupted in applause, moved by his sincerity. Backstage after the event, James reflected on the evening. "It's strange, isn't it?" he said to Keanu as they sipped water. "A year ago, I wouldn't have dreamed of speaking in front of so many people. Now, here we are." Keanu nodded, understanding exactly what James meant. "Sometimes life pushes us into places we didn't expect," he replied. "But if we stay true to ourselves, those moments can shape us in amazing ways." Their journey together wasn't without challenges, though. Occasionally, James still wrestled with doubts, wondering if he truly deserved the admiration he received. There were nights when memories of the bank confrontation crept back, reminding him of how vulnerable he'd felt. During those times, Keanu would gently remind him of his worth. "James, you earned every bit of respect you're getting, not because of what happened that day, but because of who you are," Keanu would say. These words, spoken with unwavering conviction, helped James push past his insecurities. Meanwhile, the bank manager involved in the incident faded from public view. Rumors circulated that he had been reassigned to a less prominent role within the company, though nothing was confirmed. Some speculated that he regretted his behavior, while others believed he remained indifferent. Regardless, the focus shifted, away from him and toward the lessons learned from the situation. For James and Keanu, holding on to anger or resentment held no appeal. Instead, they chose to channel their energy into spreading positivity and encouraging others to do the same. One particularly memorable moment came during a charity event hosted by a local nonprofit organization. The group worked tirelessly to support underprivileged families, providing food, clothing, and educational resources. As part of the program, several beneficiaries shared their stories, highlighting the struggles they faced and the hope they found through the organization's efforts. Toward the end of the evening, the host invited Keanu and James to the stage. The crowd erupted in cheers as they stepped forward, clearly moved by their presence. Taking the microphone, Keanu spoke briefly about the importance of compassion and standing up for those in need. Then, he handed it to James, who hesitated for a moment before beginning. "When I think about my own experience, I realize how lucky I am," James said, his voice steady despite the nerves. "I had someone who stood by me when I needed it most. That's why I believe we all have the power to make a difference, whether it's helping a stranger, supporting a friend, or simply choosing kindness over judgment." His words struck a chord with the audience, earning a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. Afterward, dozens of attendees approached James and Keanu, thanking them for their message. A young woman named Maria, who volunteered with the nonprofit, shared her own story of overcoming adversity. "Your courage gives me hope," she told them, tears glistening in her eyes. "If you can rise above something so difficult, then maybe I can too." Moments like these reinforced why they kept sharing their story, not for fame or accolades, but because it made a difference. As the months passed, Keanu and James returned to their routines, finding comfort in the familiarity of their daily lives. Yet the lessons they'd learned stayed with them, shaping how they interacted with the world. Keanu continued prioritizing humility and kindness, proving time and again that his reputation as a genuinely good person was well-deserved. James embraced his role as a source of inspiration, using his experiences to uplift others and remind them of their value. Their bond deepened further, becoming a cornerstone of both their lives. Whether navigating busy streets in Los Angeles or enjoying quiet evenings at home, they found joy in each other's company. Keanu often joked that James was the real star of their partnership, given how many people admired him for his resilience and grace. James, in turn, credited Keanu for teaching him the true meaning of loyalty and friendship. Together they proved that relationships built on mutual respect and trust could weather any storm. One crisp autumn morning, as they drove through the eanu scenic hills outside the city, Keanu turned to James and said, "You know, sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we hadn't gone to that bank that day." James thought for a moment before replying, "Maybe nothing would have changed, or maybe everything would have been worse. But I think things happened the way they were supposed to. We learned a lot, and so did a lot of other people." Keanu smiled, nodding in agreement. "Exactly," he said. "And that's what matters most." In the end, the story of Keanu Reeves and his driver transcended its origins. It wasn't just about a celebrity defending an employee. It was about humanity, the connections we form, the values we uphold, and the choices we make every day. Through their actions, they reminded the world that kindness has the power to heal, inspire, and unite. And as long as there are people willing to stand up for one another, stories like theirs will continue to shine brightly, lighting the path toward a better future. As the years rolled on, the story of Keanu Reeves and James remained a beacon of hope for countless people around the world. What began as an ordinary day at a bank had evolved into something extraordinary, a testament to the enduring power of kindness, courage, and respect. Though life eventually settled back into its usual rhythm for both men, the impact of that moment stayed with them, shaping their perspectives and guiding their actions in ways they never anticipated. For James, the journey was transformative. He no longer saw himself as merely the driver. Instead, he embraced his role as someone who contributed meaningfully to Keanu's life, and by extension, to the lives of others. The confidence he gained from overcoming humiliation and standing tall alongside Keanu became a cornerstone of his identity. Friends often remarked how James carried himself differently now, with poise, purpose, and an unshakable belief in his worth. Even in small everyday interactions, he made it a point to treat everyone with dignity, knowing firsthand how much it mattered. Keanu, too, continued living his life with humility and grace. Despite the praise he received for defending James, he never let it inflate his ego. Instead, he used the experience as a reminder of why staying grounded was so important. In interviews, when asked about the incident, he always redirected the focus to broader themes of empathy and equality. "It's not about me," he would say. "It's about remembering that we're all human beings deserving of respect. If my actions inspired even one person to think differently or act with more kindness, then it was worth it." Their bond grew stronger with each passing year. Keanu and James weren't just employer and employee. They were friends, partners, and confidants. Whether navigating hectic schedules or enjoying quiet moments together, they shared a connection rooted in mutual trust and admiration. Keanu valued James's loyalty and dedication, while James appreciated Keanu's unwavering support and generosity. Together, they proved that relationships built on respect and authenticity could weather any challenge. One summer afternoon, as they drove along the Pacific Coast Highway, Keanu turned to James and said, "You know, sometimes I wonder if people realize how much they inspire us too." James raised an eyebrow, curious. "What do you mean?" he asked. Keanu smiled, faintly. "I mean, sure, we stood up for what was right that day at the bank. But since then, I've seen how you carry yourself with strength and grace. You've taught me a lot about resilience and humility. So thank you for that." James chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Funny coming from you," he replied. "You're the one who showed me what real leadership looks like. Not just telling people what to do, but showing them through your actions." Their exchange was lighthearted, yet profound, capturing the essence of their friendship. They didn't need grand gestures or lengthy speeches to express gratitude. They simply understood and appreciated each other. The ripple effects of their story continued to spread far beyond Los Angeles. Schools incorporated it into anti-bullying campaigns, teaching students the importance of standing up for others. Corporations referenced it during training sessions, urging employees to foster inclusive environments. Even online communities celebrated it as a shining example of humanity triumphing over arrogance. People everywhere found inspiration in the idea that one person's courage could spark change, not just for themselves, but for countless others. One particularly touching moment came when a young boy named Ethan sent Keanu and James a letter. His mother had read him their story, and it left a lasting impression. "Dear Mr. Reeves and Mr. James," the letter began, "thank you for being brave and kind. My teacher says bullies are scared inside, but you showed me that being strong means helping others instead of hurting them. Because of you, I'm going to try harder to be nice to everyone, even kids who aren't nice to me. Love, Ethan." When Keanu read the letter aloud to James, both men felt a lump rise in their throats. It was a powerful reminder that their actions mattered, not just in the present but for future generations. Despite the widespread admiration, neither Keanu nor James sought fame or recognition. They preferred focusing on the work they loved and the values they cherished. For Keanu, that meant continuing to create art that resonated with audiences worldwide. For James, it meant ensuring every detail of Keanu's schedule ran smoothly, while also finding time to volunteer with local charities. Both men believed that true fulfillment came not from accolades, but from making a positive difference in the world. Occasionally, they reflected on how different things might have been. If that day at the bank hadn't unfolded the way it did, would James still feel confident in his abilities? Would Keanu have realized the profound impact of standing up for someone else? These questions lingered in their minds, but they ultimately agreed that dwelling on what-ifs wasn't productive. What mattered most was the here and now, the choices they made today and the legacy they hoped to leave behind. Years later, when asked about the incident in interviews, Keanu summed it up perfectly. "Life is unpredictable. Sometimes we find ourselves in situations where we can either look away or step up. I chose to step up because I believe in treating everyone with respect. And honestly, I think James did most of the heavy lifting. He faced adversity with incredible grace. And that's something truly remarkable." James, for his part, always credited Keanu for setting an example he could follow. "He didn't have to say anything that day," James once told a reporter, "but he did, and that simple act changed everything, for me, for him, and for so many others. It reminded me that kindness isn't just a feeling, it's an action. And when we choose to act with kindness, we create ripples that reach farther than we ever imagined." In the end, the story of Keanu Reeves and James wasn't just about two individuals. It was about the power of unity, compassion, and integrity. It served as a reminder that heroes aren't defined by capes or fame. They're defined by their willingness to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. Through their courage and humility, Keanu and James inspired countless people to see the best in themselves and others. As they drove off into the sunset one evening, heading toward another adventure, Keanu glanced at James and grinned. "You ready for whatever comes next?" he asked. James returned the smile, his eyes reflecting the golden hues of the fading sun. "Always," he replied. Together they moved forward, knowing that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them side by side, with kindness, courage, and unwavering respect for the humanity they shared with everyone around them.